Mike Kelly. I want you to listen to Representative Mike Kelly at a Donald Trump rally. Listen to the insidiousness of the threat. Just listen, you hear it.
I want every one of you to make a commitment to get out and vote November 3rd and absolutely refuse to lose. This is the president. This is the time. This is your solemn oath to America. We're going to make America great again, because of Donald J. Trump. There's no flu that's going to keep this man down. He makes the Energizer Bunny look like a deadhead. This guy never stops. He never sleeps. He is totally dedicated to each one of you, and we should be totally dedicated to him. I love this president. I love his agenda, and I love the fact that on November 3rd, we're going to put him back in the White House. Mr. President, thank you.
Let's back up to the very first few words he says.
I want every one of you to make a commitment to get out and vote November 3rd and absolutely refuse to lose.
Okay. On any normal election cycle, I would probably pay that comment no attention whatsoever. I have a natural inclination to just say, like, no big deal, just political rhetoric. But we're not in a normal cycle. We're in a cycle where Donald Trump has gathered up all of his Trump army. Literally, it's like TrumpArmy.com, where he's gathering tens of thousands of people who are going to the polls to be poll watchers. They're organizing, they're organizing Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. Roger Stone is organizing them right now to enact a voter intimidation campaign. Of course, they'll never call it directly what it is, but that's what they're doing. So this is not a normal election. And so when he says he wants you to make a commitment not to lose, in a normal cycle, I'll be like, okay, well, yeah, no, everyone needs to be committed. Everyone's going to be committed to their own agenda to win, right? I get it. No. The dog whistles are piling up to a bullhorn, right? To a very direct message that they are not going to want to turn over power in this country once he loses, because they're making a commitment not to lose. The best part about this entire conversation, though, is that I think we're getting close to 30 million people, right? I think we'll cross 30 million people this week who have already early voted. They voted early. They can't be intimidated because their vote is already on the books, right? They can't be monitored by the Boogaloo Boys because they've already voted. And the demographics suggest that this overwhelming number of people who have early voted, they are voting against Donald Trump and for Joe Biden. So that's the best news out of everything, so that by election night, it could very well be a landslide on election night. Like, in general, I'm telling people to just kind of wait and don't expect to get results, at least for the first week. But with so many people early voting, it's a possibility we may know on election night that Donald Trump has lost. And that's because so many people heard the dog whistles, heard the warnings, heard Donald Trump trying to suppress the vote. They actively saw what he was doing, and everyone made a plan of how they were going to get their vote counted to avoid. And this is the thing. This is the saddest part, is that we're having to actively avoid the voter suppression tactics that are being used by Republicans. I played it last night, and I kind of feel like playing it again. Because it really just shows you the extent to which they're willing to disenfranchise Americans.
Investigators are searching for the person who set a ballot drop box on fire in Baldwin Park. Firefighters say someone purposely tossed burning newspaper into the box, damaging an unknown number of ballots.
Good morning, Giovanna. This one is located on Baldwin Park Boulevard, just outside the public library. Baldwin Park police are still looking for the person who vandalized this ballot box last night. According to city of...
Like, this is the level of commitment they have to disenfranchising you. And I think enough Americans saw that, and they made plans to vote early to get around all of the voter suppression that they're trying to enact. All right, let's get you guys in the conversation. This is Trumpers claim civil war comes November 3rd. They're screaming it on live stream protest marches. Yeah. I mean, they've been talking about the second civil war, ironically enough. They've been talking about the second civil war since Donald Trump won, right? Since they gained power, they immediately went into this civil war mode where they managed. I will give them this, and I want to give you this. This is important. Conservatives have mastered the art of being both in power, but pretending as though they're out of power. Conservatives have mastered the art of pretending as though they are oppressed, when in actuality, they are the oppressors. Very straightforward. When Donald Trump won in 2017, they won power. They had all the branches of the government. But they instantly and immediately acted like they were powerless so that they can forward narratives that would make it seem like justice is on their side. I'm trying to see how I can make it extremely plain. The reason they always talk about stuff like the war on Christmas is because they understand that there is a value to being able to convince their supporters that they are on the side of justice and they are the ones who are being oppressed. Therefore, we should galvanize your righteous indignation and you should stand up and fight against the oppression of people who are in power. Right? I hope everybody's following me. They understand that if an individual feels like they have been slighted, it energizes the pursuit of justice inside of them. Somebody steals your lunch, you feel like you have a righteous cause to go and snatch your lunch back, right? Somebody steals your car, you feel like you have been slighted, you feel like you have been victimized, you feel like you've been oppressed, and you have the right to go and seek justice. That energy that you get from the feeling of being oppressed or done wrong or abused or mistreated or cheated, that feeling that you get is powerful. It's powerful enough to overthrow empires, right? Every narrative that you pick up in the Bible, it has like a narrative of justice. Like it has the people who feel like they have been oppressed by Group A who are now rising up to get victory over Group A. Same thing throughout history. This is why it's so important to the conservatives that we don't teach history from the perspective of the people's history. I believe his name Howard Zinn's book, who gives the narrative of American history from the perspective of the indigenous people, from the workers and the labor rights movement, right? Because it's a totally different narrative. It places the real story of America places the narrative of the just in the hands of the people who are trying to survive America. I want to make sure I get this out really plain. Conservatives 100% understand that it is necessary for them at all times to have power and to pretend as though they're powerless. Because if they don't pretend like they're powerless, then people will become complacent, right? People won't have that anger. They won't have that quote unquote righteous indignation. They won't feel like they are suffering. They won't feel like they are oppressed. And more importantly, it makes these people who have all the power in the country look at people who have no power and look at like people from the trans community. And all of a sudden, the big bad wolf for Fox News viewers and conservatives are a group of people who literally have the least amount of power in our society. So the reason I'm talking about this is because we saw this happen in real time in 2017. Donald Trump came into power. He had the White House, he had the Supreme Court, he had the House of Representatives, he had the Senate. More or less, he had the Supreme Court. But they had an overwhelming majority of power, and they could do anything that they wanted to do. They had all the power. And what did they do instantly? One, they wielded that power to get all the tax breaks that they wanted. But two, they instantly started conversations about a civil war as if they were oppressed. It is the master stroke of propaganda to be able to have all the power in this country and to pretend like you're powerless. To be able to pretend as though you are oppressed when in reality you are the oppressor. And that is the master work of conservatism in this country. And it is on purpose, because if the people ever get the sensation that they're wrong, that, wow, wait a minute, I'm oppressing this group, they can, do you know how, that will utterly neutralize. That will neutralize a conservative movement if any of their supporters ever get a moment of a brief epiphany to realize, wait a minute, you mean I've been the one oppressing this group? That's why they reject racial bias training. That's why they reject critical race theory. That's why they reject the people's history of the United States. That's why they reject all these notions, because they cannot let their supporters ever get the sensation that they are wrong, that they are the oppressors. Because what happens when you get the inclination that you've done wrong and that you've been the oppressor? If you have any type of empathy in you whatsoever, you're not a full-blown sociopath like most of the Republican leadership, and Donald Trump most certainly is, then you will instantly feel a sensation of guilt, and you would start to consider the other person's perspective. In order for them to never consider your perspective, you have to always be more powerful than they are, even though simultaneously you're powerless. And that is one of the number one techniques of fascism, to be quite honest with you. That is a direct playbook. That's a direct play out of the fascist playbook. Command Z. Inconvenience is oppression to the white ruling class, right? Simply not being able to tell you what to do. I'm going to go one step further. It's not just them. It is them being inconvenienced, right? They don't want to be inconvenienced because to them that's oppression. But they also consider not being able to control your life as oppression. They literally define their liberty based on being able to control your liberty. They define their freedoms based on being able to control your freedoms. More precisely, if they can't tell you what to do, how to live, where to go, how to be, if they can't tell a woman what to do with her body, if they can't tell gay couples that they can't get married, then they feel like they are oppressed. Literally. They feel like they are oppressed because they cannot dictate to you how you should live your life. Grey Wolf Rainsfall said, I call it the Trayvon Martin effect, whereas the victim is the murderer and the murderer is painted as the victim to defend the indefensible. I couldn't have said it better, Grey Wolf. I'm going to put it back on the screen. The Trayvon Martin effect, where the victim is the murderer and the murderer is painted as the victim to defend the indefensible. This is the handiwork of sociopaths who understand what's necessary to always remain in power. To always remain in power, you have to snatch justice, the very idea of justice. You got to snatch that away from people who you oppressed, right? You can't ever allow groups of people to ever organize around their righteous indignation. So you got to snatch it away. And all of a sudden you got to gaslight them to the nth degree. So now you have them really questioning, like, well, is it wrong for them to have pulled up on Tamir Rice and shot him 2 seconds entering on the scene? Like they try to tell us that Tamir Rice was to blame, because they can never let us organize around the fact that we have been robbed of justice on a regular basis, on a daily basis in this country, not just centered around race. Yes, we have been denied justice for years, for generations around race, but around economic exploitation, around COVID-19, like around our healthcare system, around the fact that we live in a system that allows people to profit off of your most miserable time in your, the most painful time in your life. People battling cancer, people battling diabetes, people battling all sorts of diseases. And we have a system that's erected that allows people to make profits off of your pain, off of your sickness. And then what do? Because normal time, if we ever were able to see it clearly, without the gaslighting that goes on, oh man, this country would have been changed a long time ago. It would have been changed a long time ago, because how absurd is it? How absurd is it for there to be middlemen making profits, making billions of dollars of profit off of people who are fighting cancer? Like, the absurdity of it all. But the way they maintain it is by snatching away the narrative of justice from the people who have been abused and systematically oppressed in this country, and trying to find ways of making the oppressive group, the group that does the oppression, feel like they are the victims. That's why every Christmas we have a war on Christmas, because they got to make sure that these Christians feel like, evangelical Christians specifically, feel like they have been victimized in this country. Oh, we can't say Merry. Yes, the hell you can. I say Merry Christmas every damn year, every year. Nobody stopped me from saying Merry Christmas. Then I might turn around and say Feliz Navidad. I might turn around and say Happy Hanukkah, whatever. I just, whatever I want to say. Nobody's stopping me. Oh no, we can't pray in school. The hell you can't. I pray in school all the time when I know I hadn't studied for a test and I needed to pass. I used to pray all the time. Nobody ever stopped me. And every now and then, God came through with a miracle and I passed. But besides the point, nobody's stopping you. What they're upset about is the fact that they don't have the ability to force you to live according to their rules and their doctrines and their theology. And so that's why they feel like they are oppressed. And it is gaslighting of the highest order. It is manipulative. And the best way for you to understand it is some of you in your personal relationships, like in your significant others, right? That's the type of gaslighting that goes on in abusive relationships, where they make you guilty, like you know they were wrong, but then they make you feel guilty, and then they walk away feeling like, I have been vindicated because you heard. No, I caught you. You were the one that was cheating. You're the one that did this. You're the one that spent all of our money. You're the one who didn't, whatever it is. Gaslighting of the highest order is to be able to be dead ass wrong, but project that wrongness on someone else and rob them of the opportunity to get justice. I love the name of it that you gave it, because it's absolutely right. It is a Trayvon Martin effect, where the victim becomes the victimizer and the victimizer gets away with being perceived as the victim.